Hey guys, welcome back to Trekyards. I'm Captain Foley.
I'm Commander Cookins.
That's right. And today we have a special treat for you guys. Uh, as you know, the real sizes for the Shinjo and the Discovery came out. We've already done a video comparing them to Prime Universe stuff, but we figured we would take a look at the JJ stuff because a lot of people have been saying this is the JJ verse. Why are they lying to us? And so anyway, let's just look at that and see what we come up with.
And look at the practical effects we're using. No post-production here. This is all practical lens flares, you know, the qualiest that we'll probably have to remove in with CG after the fact because fans and directors will realize there's too many. Yeah. They put so much money into that. Anyway, yes, real scales, real sizes, and a much requested thing in the comments below. They said, why didn't you compare it to JJ? Well, because it deserves its own video because there's multiple ships. And again, I want to thank Chris Kern and Christopher Carwell, and of course the 3D Sci-Fi Renders group that passed along the Shinjo Convert, and Chris for doing the amazing Discovery. So it's wonderful to have really ultra high-res models of these ships to be able to show, like we do on Trekyards normally, and show the scales. Let's get right into it. So this first picture is the JJ Enterprise. Now it is worth noting that we talked to the designer of the Enterprise, JJ Enterprise from the third film. I can't remember the name of. What was the guy's name?
Sean Hargraves.
Thank you. Read it again. So when we talked to Sean Hargraves, he did confirm that his Enterprise, both the new one and the one in that movie, was the same size as one from Into Darkness, which was the same size as the one before. So he confirmed the scaling was consistent throughout the three films. And four ships. And in the DVD, well, we're going by the Blu-ray scale, which is about 1,500 feet. I forgot exactly what it was, but it's the official Blu-ray scale. And yes, there's all that controversy. Is it really that size? Is it not? We're going with scale size that they said at the time because they printed the shots to that scale. So that's the default for that. So what do you think?
Sadly, it works better for me. This is more accurate as far as scaling goes, especially for that time period. And I really hate to say that because they've kind of said it's not the JJ verse. They've said it's Prime, but everything after the JJ movies seems to follow that aesthetic and that kind of feel, and especially the scale now that I see this. So sadly, I think, the Shinjo's like a scientific ship. It's supposed to be smaller. The Constitution looks good here compared to the Shinjo. And then the Discovery, again, a science vessel, or experimental vessel, sorry. And again, it works here. I mean, yeah, the nacelles are longer than the JJ nacelles, but the rest of the ship kind of holds up as far as size-wise goes.
And it is worth noting that we've still, even though it's different universes, different whatever, and different versions of reboots, it's worth noting what's newer. Obviously, Shinjo is older.
Mm-hmm.
That goes out saying, and obviously fits in that evolutional line. The 2009 Enterprise, when that ship was launched, was 2258. So keep that in your mind. 2258 is the JJ Prize. And this ship is meant to be out in 2256. So it's meant to be a little bit newer than Discovery. But I put it here because it kind of worked well size-wise. So if you imagine it would evolve into that. Obviously, it's a completely different profile, completely different, like I said, experimental science ship designed with the spore drive versus head of the fleet new colony design. And from my perspective, it's like it's just almost embarrassing how close it is because it's like, yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you build ships of the same-ish size, of the same-ish era? Obviously, it's just hugely reproportioned, and lengths and everything and whatnot, but even the internal volume, I mean, if you look at how few people are on Discovery, and if you look at the bridge module matches up pretty damn well. I mean, there's like a corridor behind the bridge, and there's other things on the JJ Prize, it's different versions, but this is the original version. And obviously, the cells are, and even the shuttle bay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, okay, maybe it's a little bit. Well, I just wanted to point out the shuttle bay on the Discovery doesn't actually make sense at the 700 scale because it's like a 3-floor. It's only like 2.5 times bigger than the Connie, and I kind of disagree with that. But it kind of also makes sense. Whereas this would be like it's difficult. But hey, we're just going with, as people bitched as before, these are the official numbers. we're presenting the information.
And
we're not.
Everybody's like, "Oh, they must have mixed up feet and meters." Well, no, because that would make it even worse because meters are bigger than feet, and blah blah blah. And is EagleMoss really canon? And blah. I've heard all the arguments with our last video, and that's the numbers we're given. That's what we're working with.
I think the bottom line is CBS told EagleMoss printed it. We're reporting what EagleMoss printed as official CBS licensee. So, but yeah, it works really well, and seeing those 20 years of Shinjo to the Enterprise be that big step forward, that bigger ship, works really well. And you're right, even the stylings aren't too far off. I mean, you put all three together, it's like one's a more, I don't know how to say it, like refined middle value. The other one's a bit more rustic because the shapes have to be more hard edged to fit the kit in, whereas the Enterprise is more refining of the same design again and again, iteration as it gets to this newer version. And Shinjo is probably the same thing, just of its time.
And it should be pointed out too that the Blue Bizarre collectors on the Discovery and the JJ Prize match up, and that's a thing now. Blue Bizarre collectors, and they always look they look cool. And as I've said before, there are ships in Starfleet battles that have blue nacelles or blue Bizarre collectors, but I don't know.
My only thing for Blue Bizarres is don't make them spinning blades, make them plasma. Then it's a 1-for-1 connection, or just make them orange, and it looks actually better as an orange Bizarre. Like we've seen it with orange, it looks actually better. But Stuart, this is not the only measurement, as we know. Perspective changes. There is. The next picture is a look at them from the side.
Ooh, wow. Again, this works.
I love that little. You should subtitle that. Stuart's brain going into action there.
Yeah, my brain is just waking up and going, wow.
Which is fair, yeah.
First time I've seen this, and that's my first reaction. And again, the first thing I think of is the comparison shot of the original refit Enterprise with the Miranda. The Miranda's a little bit shorter. The Shinjo here is substantially shorter than the Miranda would be compared to the Enterprise of the JJ verse, but it works because it is like 30 or 40 years older, at least, and I think that's a good evolutionary step in the JJ verse. And I hate saying that. The Kelvin verse. I don't know what you want to call it. I hate saying that this works, but it totally does.
Well, I mean it's ironic how we're doing double cognitive dissonance here. You know, when we talk about the ships normally, we're trying to fit a visual reboot into the prime timeline, which obviously doesn't work because they haven't built it to work. They built it to be new. But we have to look at it in the framework they've given us, which is it's prime, it's canon. So we look at it as they've given us. If they said reboot from the start, we'd accept it and just move on because that's the. So even though they've said this isn't JJ, we're looking at it in that single context, which is not what they've said. It's going against the vibe, but it kind of actually works better. So we know it doesn't. We know this is not what it is. But if they're the influences of the people behind the scenes, Alex Kurtzman and whoever, the influences are clearly visible here. You know, even so much as there's the striping, the leveling on the nacelle. Look at that slice. There's a slice in the other one. The fins as well, very similar. Mm-hmm.
A lot of similarities pop out. Even window sizes here kind of match up somewhat with the Enterprise, and it makes sense. I think that this Enterprise has 1,000 personnel or something on board,
which would be fine. Amount of volume extra,
Yeah, but then you compare it to the 137 people on the Discovery, which is fine because, like they've said, it's an scientific vessel that can run 300 scientific experiments. So a lot of that area is taken up with labs and the spore drive tech. So really, that kind of works for me here. And the bridges do match up.
All three ships
really well.
Yep. Yeah. Bigger bridges that are just bigger, and we've said it's a bigger ship straight away when they had a bigger bridge. It's like even with lenses, 24mm, it makes things look bigger. Look at the space in between people; it's bigger. Yep. But this isn't the only comparison because it's worth comparing other things in the JJ verse. So next shot is a top view. I've now included the USS Kelvin, and we'll talk about that in a second. The Franklin, which has that we know the scale of 100%, obviously the Connie, just for reference. And this Kelvin is, again, it went all over the place with scaling. We looked at that in our episode. This isn't the fan extrapolation. This isn't the EagleMoss version. This is they mention it in the Blu-ray once, And so again, both these measures are from the internal scale charts, but we know in the show they changed them between shots because they sort of admitted that separately. But yes, this is a scale and kind of the mostly works scale, but still huge for TOS. But now, what do you think of the evolution? And this is roughly in time order as well.
Again, it works perfectly. The the Franklin is pre-NX era, and specifically built ship. So that sizing I kind of like, that small little scale.
Well, that always fits in beautifully.
Yeah, even to the Prime, honestly. Yeah. And then, the Kelvin, we know, is a older ship again, probably built around the same time as the Shinjo.
Yeah, the dates are kind of weird. I mean, you talk about the scaling and I'll find the dates.
All right. But yeah, this evolutionary line works nicely for me. The only thing that really stands out to me with this picture is the texturing on the Shinjo. It just looks so different and out of the box compared to all the other ships. So yeah, but that doesn't fit in Prime timeline either. So that just is a unique thing in and of itself here. Even the red markings on it, just the beautiful dark colors like that. I really like that ship. I really do.
And it'd be perfect as post Voyager, be this radical new take with markings, with cool engines and huge shuttle bay and retro but advanced deflector.
Yes.
So just some dating reference, and again, the Shinjo's a bit all over the place with that. Again, the Kelvin was destroyed, so not mentioning when it's built, but its destroyed point was 2233. But if you look at the engine room deck, being the brewery, it kind of looked old, and either run down or old. So I would guess it's an old ship, because I'm not bloody believing that's a brand new design. You design, a brewery. So let's assume that's, say, 20 years old or 15 years old anyway. At least 10.
That was when they were still building engine rooms out of brick. It's concrete blocks.
Yes.
And water pipes that dripped.
Hence why with the 3-part, it's a laughable ship design, except the bridge and the outside. Okay. So let's assume 10 years. So let's say 22, 23. The Shinjo is seen in 40s is when she beams aboard, but we know it's 2256, it's about 7 years, so late 40s, and then it's old by that point. So if they're both serving at the same time, but each of which are old at their points. They're probably about 25 years between, probably.
It could be too that the Shinjo is just a little bit older than the Kelvin. Again, if you slide that,
that'd be old. That'd be like a 50-year-old ship then. If the Kelvin was new.
They didn't specifically say how old it was. She said it was an old ship for the time, with the lateral vector transporters and all that jazz. I mean, even if you slid the Shinjo over and included it as pre-Kelvin, that would be even better for fitting in scale-wise. I think they're built around the same time, but I do think the Kelvin was built a little bit later. I'm just trying to make a point. My other point here is, again, the bridge scaling on the Kelvin matches up with everything we see here. Even the Franklin, because the Franklin we knew had a crew of like 24 people or something silly. That was very small ship. Very small ship. So if you look at the bridge on the Franklin there, it was a pretty small bridge on the interior. Compared to all the other bridges we've seen the interiors of. Even the Kelvin had a huge bridge inside. So that bridge does match up with the JJ1 and the Discovery here, and we know the Shinjo too as well. But this works for me on so many levels, and they keep saying it's not the Kelvinverse. It's not the Kelvinverse, yet it fits everything they've done. Size-wise, at least, fits in beautifully with the Kelvinverse.
Well, it's also interesting that you could look at it in another tact, whereby we extrapolate the only way the Kelvin makes sense with like its 1,000-person crew as well. It was a ridiculous amount of people. It was just like, it's a colony vessel, a hyper long range for its time. Either way, that's exploration / peacefulness. And again, the amount of shuttles. It certainly wasn't a warship. I think it was a science cruiser was what it was. So that's the sort of style, and it fits in closer with the mission profile of older ships. Even the Connie was an exploration in some regards. 5-year mission is there to explore. It's not boarded. It is, while it's there also to deal with Klingons and such. If it need to be, it's a 5-year mission of exploration. Therefore, it's round, single saucer. Its styling is designed in that vein. The Shinjo, we never really get a good indication of what it's there for, but the fact that it's so radically different with its square nacelles and such can imply it is more of a tactical ship, which means that could be the tactical styling. Exploration has the nacelles that are more designed for output, whereas the Shinjo and more military ships at the time, they have more armoured nacelles, and because that's one of the biggest changes. You can rectify everything else by just of the class or marking, like the Franklin obviously has markings, but the nacelles I can kind of rectify.
And it is worth saying too that we have some pictures coming up that include the Vengeance, and the Vengeance nacelles and the Shinjos look pretty similar, and it is definitely designed to be a military ship, the Vengeance. So there's that tie in there. Maybe they are specifically made to be like, battleships, because even in Star Trek 2, the Miranda was originally supposed to be called the Avenger class, and it was supposed to be more powerful than the Enterprise. Had the mega phasers, had rear-facing photon torpedoes. It was just a more advanced ship. Then when TNG, the production crew came around, they changed it to the Miranda. It became a scientific vessel, not as advanced as the heavy cruiser. It was a medium cruiser, or a light cruiser. And so there's changes that happen during the course of the production as well. But if you look at the nacelles on this, and we're going to see the Vengeance in a minute, they're very similar in their look and feel. So,
and just to jump back, you're right with the Miranda. The time of the movies, there was still the Cold War, but things were ramping up a little bit. So it would make sense then that if you're refitting your flagship and other ships, give them the military grade nacelles, give them the extra armor as default. Because guess what? We're more of a Cold War time. This is more, even more so. The colonies were built before the Cold War, but now they're during the Cold War. So why don't we fit everything with these more square nacelles? And that'd be an interesting way of rectifying why those nacelles came in, and then obviously they came out again, and as technology improved, just shields got better, armor got better, or they needed speed more than armor. So the C has the more conventional TNG nacelles, and that was just the way it all went. Maybe. Because that'd be an interesting way of giving that timelines, those little slithers of this is why, or at least just different parts of the universe. And I think I've complained multiple times in TOS, we only see one or two classes of ship. Should have seen a fleet if they'd budget, and what could they have been? Would have been cool to know this and go back. So the next picture though is a side view, and again shows it in context. I will say it makes you kind of wonder. Well, I guess back to the top view for one more second. Look at the shuttle bay. We know that the Kelvin launches God knows how many shuttles.
It's like 24.
40. Yeah, it's huge, and I guess they're racks of shuttles. But that doesn't quite work for me with the... But again, they scaled those shots differently because they just wanted a cool shot, whatever. But back to the side view again. Put more into context. I mean, again, you can see how far out the TOS Prime timeline ship is. I mean, it's not even in the same ballpark as anything else in the scaling. Not remotely.
And here too, I kind of get the feeling that the Shinjo could even be more of an Andorian based or a Tellarite based design, based on its unique appearance here, its unique hull texturing, even the nacelles.
Yeah.
But even the texturing on the Shinjo there matches with the Franklin, the darker look.
Yep.
But it seems to me that then once you get into the Kelvin and the Enterprise, that's the more, the Tellarites, the Andorians, the humans, the Vulcans, all working together to create one cohesive design style. But it does seem like maybe the Shinjo is its own unique thing because it was built earlier. I don't know. It looks unique from all the other ships here. Even the Discovery still has that Starfleet vibe. So
well, I mean, it's post-Federation either way. So it'd be interesting to have said that. I mean, we've seen the Battle by a Star. Every ship has a completely different flavor.
Yeah.
I mean, completely different flavour. So you could, and I know we talked to John vaguely about this sort of behind the scenes, and he's saying, well, stars go in and out of fashion, and things are tested and failed, obviously to get to what we know as the classics. Well, yeah, you're right. If each race, Tellarite, Andorian, if they all contributed a thought process, and Federation was like, well, now we've got this great union, once we build the first gen of stuff we know works to be the good unifier of the fleet, let's experiment with a dozen different designs. Shinjo was one of them, one of the more popular ones. But then obviously they all kind of weren't chosen, and it goes back to the stuff we know, and that stuff evolved for the next the end of time.
And
But
I want to point out too here in the novel Desperate Hours, they do mention the radically different design styles of the Shenzhou and the Constitution class, Pike's Constitution class. And it's kind of an in-joke between the Andorians and the Vulcans and the Tellarites that the humans, each generation of their ships or each style of ship has a completely different visual feel to it. And it's like, it's kind of a joke among them all. Like, they can't make up their mind as to what they want things to look like, which is a really cheap way to explain the difference. But it was, the way they did it in the novel was kind of funny. So I thought that was worth pointing out, at least, that
yeah,
eventually we get a cohesive style, but for the first little while it was just all over the place.
yeah, which is fine and funny, but yeah, scaling, it's interesting. But Stuart, now do you remember a little old ship from Into Darkness, called the Vengeance? Now, how big did it feel like in the movie?
Oh my god, it felt huge. And
compared to a huge ship. Now, this is a tricky one because there is no official scaling given for the ship exactly.
Yes.
It's kind of a little bit... I can't remember if exactly this is an EagleMoss, but I didn't go to that because they got the Kelvin size wrong, and they got the... You know what I mean? They're going for the retconned back in, oh, we're sorry, guys, it's actually this scale, despite most of the shots not working.
Yeah.
So I, previously, like a year and a half ago, we asked Star Trek Online, the team, because they've added in the Kelvin timeline ships, and they had to scale them. And they stuck with the guns of the CG scaling, and I was told that the Kelvin was 1,500 meters big. So I was able to use that scale, so it is an official CBS... Meters? Yep, it's 4,200 feet. So I was able to use officially licensed scaling for this, which I was like, damn, what do I scale it to? Oh, that's what I scale it to. So Stuart, the next picture, and I love this model. This is a wonderful, wonderful fan model. Just almost perfect sort of thing. Helped have the miniature. But yeah, there is scaled compared to everything else, and I don't think people have seen this sort of scaling before because we don't often use the Vengeance. So the size of everything else is the size of the nacelle. Okay, cool.
Well, yeah, and it's the next evolution starship, right? It's designed to be a ass kicker, and it's the one of a kind.
Designed to be piloted by one person.
Pretty much.
Yeah. That's what they said. It could be. Oh god.
It's a dreadnought, and it's supposed to be bigger. I mean,
built around Jupiter that no one knew, and.
Yeah, well, whatever. Anyway, and see, even with Franz Joseph, their dreadnought, the Federation class, was the same size as the Constitution class. It was this, like a couple feet longer. It was odd, and they've even made reference that, and we did an episode on the dreadnought way early on, which we need to redo because it's awful, but that compared to other dreadnoughts of other races based on Starfleet battles and FASA, the Federation ones were very downsized. They didn't focus on size, and that was one of their failings. Here, this is the dreadnought that when I think dreadnought, I think bigger than a heavy cruiser, way more powerful, and that definitely works here. But we know that even in the JJ movie, Into Darkness, there's the scaling shots within the movie itself change. There's a scene where they're facing off, and it's like the Enterprise is like this big, and it just looks ridiculous. So this scaling works for me, and again, it's a great progression from the Franklin all the way up to the next evolution of ship, which is designed for battle. It's a military ship, so
makes you wonder though. I mean, the Klingon ships they're designed to face at this time we know are still they're Klingon warbirds. They call them warbirds for some reason in 09. They look about the same size, so I mean they really want to jump. But it always made me laugh, Khan, who's a guy from the past, helped him design a ship that was more advanced in the future. It's like, I mean, he could learn, but he's not a scientist and has no specific knowledge.
Exactly, he's not a scientist. He's a warlord. He ruled a good portion of Earth, so he has a military mindset, a military intelligence.
Well, he would just said build more guns. I mean, he couldn't help them build a ship twice as big.
True. With
all this new advanced technology. But it's a Section 31 ship, and it is. Oh my God, what the hell is in the space? I mean, is it filled with stuff, or is it literally like meters of armor, tens of meters of armor? Because I mean, that would be cool if it was literally just filled to the brim. Internal volume, same as the Connie, which is also fits 1,000 people, but actually just meters of armor and meters of plating to survive anything. Otherwise, this is going to have like thousands and thousands of crew, but it's meant to have several dozen piloting it and one if need be, and it was that easy. It's like, okay.
Yeah, and it's got cargo bay airlock doors that are like a meter across for
Despite
like one person to
cargo
fit
bay that's the length of a factory floor. I mean,
football field, yeah.
yeah. My dad noted about this when I talking about these scale charts. He said, "This is very much the American ship, where the American values, everything is to be bigger, supersize the ships." Matt Jeffries and those Andrew Probert, Rick Sternberg, they weren't thinking supersize. They weren't thinking the American thing. They were thinking form follows function, design, realistic, a NASA scale, but future linked with what Matt Jeffries made sense. All that stuff is whatever. But then the action film version of the American is let's make it bigger, let's make it whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously look at other universes like Star Wars. Their ships are huge, and this is about the same size as a Star Destroyer. But that's it. Yeah, it's about we've done scale charts before. It's very comparable, very very comparable.
And I should point out too that the Enterprise D, the Galaxy class, is just a little bit bigger than the Kelvin Enterprise that we see here. It's about the same size. Based on
it's
if you look at the Constitution class from the Prime timeline that's there, it's the length of one of the nacelles on the Enterprise D.
Yes, the JJ prize is 725 meters, which is about the same size as the E. The D's 680.
Yeah, well, lengthwise we're talking though. I mean, the Galaxy class had the bigger saucer.
Yeah, 642. So it's a good 70 meters thinner. But yeah, the saucer's obviously gonna be wider, but it's still yeah.
So this Vengeance is huge, even compared to the next generation of ships in the Prime timeline. So,
but
man,
I mean, if you look, if all this was part of the same universe, you've got the Vengeance is the ultimate warship, the Discovery is the ultimate science ship, sleek, simple, used for its thing. The Constitution class is the ultimate exploration ship. The Shinjo is the last gen light cruiser warship, and the Kelvin is the last gen explorer class. Boop, 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 boop. Kind of works that logic. But the side view again shows you another dimension of dimensionality.
And here I really want to point out the similarities in the nacelle between the Executioner and the
Executioner. That's your dreadnought.
That's mine. It's not even dreadnought. It's a heavy cruiser, but the nacelle on the Vengeance here compared to the Shinjo, very similar design style. I mean, if you turned the Shinjos actually to the side because they're kind of angled there, they would look very similar in style.
Well, it's the closest out of all of them.
Yeah.
It's them plus Discovery equals Shinjo. It's certainly none of the Prime, none of the JJ. It's its own thing. Boy, it's a big ship.
Not so big as her captain, I think, or her admiral.
It's
Admiral
true.
RoboCop.
It's true, and he should have been able to destroy everything. Well, people have asked me weirdly in personal message, could the Vengeance take on the E? It's like, no, not remotely. I mean, this is a ship still of that era. With that level of technology, it's just huge with a lot of weapons. I mean, 1,000 water guns doesn't equal a bullet. Or a machine gun. I mean, it's not the same. An Enterprise E or a Defiant could... I mean, yes, maybe the amount of fire would overwhelm a Defiant because certain what it can do, but an E could rip it apart. I mean, probably an Akira, a Galaxy, or even Excelsior. I mean, it's so far ahead in technology. The Connie and Interstellar Darkly ripped apart everything in the NX timeline. The most advanced things in the NX timeline, like tissue paper. And that's only 100 years. Give it another 100 years, I mean, it's not even remotely a battle. It's just big. It'd be kind of funny to see, really. Just like a single, through the hull, and it's like torpedo.
Yeah, exactly.
There we go. Off we go. But yeah, I mean, let's end on the original one just to give a sense. Or I guess end on the top with the Kelvin and all those included. I mean, we're just here to present the information and people asking what is it compared to the JJ verse, if it really is closer to that timeline, if they are selling the JJ style. I mean, if you look at the bridge, just with the Shinjo and the Kelvin, they're so similar, and the captain's chairs are identical, but with a different colour. It's kind of odd how, and the controls are almost identical. It's weird how some elements are literally ripped from the Kelvin timeline, and some aren't. Well, most are. It's weird.
I think the captain's chairs in Discovery are very reminiscent of the TOS Constitution class.
Well, no, specifically the Shinjo. It's identical to the Kelvin. The Discovery is something else, but those two are like ridiculous. Discovery has its own vibe, which we hope for it be sort of newer. But yeah, I mean, does this help you guys to think it's JJ? Does it not? I mean, it's really just an interesting debate. We know it isn't meant to be, but
I think we're reinforcing that argument here.
it's up to you guys. I mean, would you prefer it was in the JJ verse, personally, Stuart?
I would. I wish I would have said that from the beginning. I would have been like, that's cool. Leave my prime timeline alone. You know what I mean? So yeah, we've been forced to accept the fact that it is prime timeline and try to explain it, and it's really quite aggravating. If they had said, yeah, this is just a part taking place in the Kelvin verse, I'd be like, everything makes perfect sense. Do whatever you want. Because you can do whatever you want. But they're trying to shoehorn stuff in and say it's prime timeline, and it just doesn't work. But we're here to look at it and go, that works, that doesn't. So
I think the biggest takeaway we'll have at the end of this discovery journey, unless they do some retconning right at the end, is that it was a fine visual reboot that we hope does not interfere with another Prime TV show that is what the Prime should be. And if this is the continuation of the universe, then it'll be like, why did they let them do it? Why?
Yeah. So
food for thought. These images are just food for thought, and enjoy them, guys.
So what do you guys think? Does this fit in your JJ timeline verse? Kelvin verse? Sorry, everybody was going to have to call it JJ verse, but it's just a thing that's stuck in my head.
That was years of Kelvin verse, though. That's what it was called. I mean, it's just...
I know. Put your discussion thoughts in the comments below. We always look forward to reading them, and there's a lot of great conversations down there. So, Also, obviously subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video if you liked it, and help us out if you can by sharing it around to everybody that you think might enjoy it.
Yeah, if you want to support the show directly, you can help us out by donating a little bit each and every month on Patreon, or a little bit every once in a while. Trekyards.com, click the donate button, give a little bit, and you get a lot for it, we think.
Absolutely. And we have fun doing this, so please help us out. But until next time, guys, where we have another debate that strengthens arguments that people have made, and anyway, until next time, I'm Captain Foley.
And I am Commander Kongs. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.